Welcome to Kingdom Mothers Rise Up, where I encourage and equip you to heal your heart and renew your mind so you can live the fully abundant life Jesus promised you. Let's go. It's time to move.
I have with me Brenda Schumann, and I'm just going to read her bio real quick to give you a glimpse of who she is. She's somebody I'm excited to talk about. I love her heart and what she's doing. Brenda has a master's degree in social work with 18 plus years in trauma and attachment treatment. She's a mom to grown daughters, an author, loves to empower people in their kingdom identity and purpose, and gets the privilege to love the hard children, teens, and women that God has entrusted her with as a missionary in Honduras. So welcome, Brenda. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm just excited to see what the Lord has for us today.
How did you get where you are? Like, a little bit of your story.
It honestly is it's just following the lead of God, right? And when you just follow the lead of God, I feel like I always say, like, he just shifts you into exactly where you're supposed to be. And it's just like one step at a time, right? And so actually, I was with someone yesterday. It's been 4 years that I've been down here in Honduras, and I'm between Honduras and the States. But right now, replacement is here in Honduras. And 4 years ago, I came down on a 20-day short-term mission trip with my daughter that I didn't even want to come on. I was like, the Lord said go on a mission trip, and I'm like, no, like you must be mistaken. Like, this is not the time, money, like I can't take off of work. Like this, I had all the reasons not to come down here. And that short-term trip turned into another short-term trip, which then I actually started dating someone from down here. So coming down just for that experience of living down here and really just being part of the Honduran culture. I had no intention of doing missions or ministry. And in fact, at that point in my life, I probably wasn't even healthy enough to be, like, I shouldn't have been. Like, I should not have been doing ministry at that point. So God always knows, right? And so I also needed that time to really just to get myself and my spirit healthy. And us, he ended up shifting us into ministry, both my partner and I. And here we are now, finally, after a number of shifts here. I'm here. He actually left, but I am here in just a tiny little village. We have about 60 homes here on the side of a mountain and a community center. I always say we primarily serve kids, but honestly, we serve kids because they're in my house every day. It's kind of like by default that we serve children. But really my heart is for moms, for women and moms. And my heart's for kids too. But there's just something that pulls at my heart whenever we can watch a mom just kind of blossom into what God really created her to be. And and so that's where my passion is, although the children show up at my gate every day.
I think, I really resonate with that because, like, I originally went to school to be a teacher, and I was like, I want to work with the kids and I want to see the impact and the change in the kids. But there was always this piece of like, but if I could get to their moms, if I could get to their parents, then it's we're a generation ahead. And like, if I can get to the moms, then I'm multiplying myself, and I don't need to get to all the kids because they can get to their kids and they can get to their kids' friends instead of, the kids are valuable and it's important, but I just always had that pulling to like, but if I could get a generation ahead.
Right. And it's harder. I feel like it's so much harder with that generation. Kids are so much easier to work with just because they don't have as much stuff that comes with them as our moms do. So it's way slower work with moms than what we see with our kids. And sometimes we do see our kids going back to minister to their parents, like taking stuff home and ministering. And honestly, I don't care how moms get it. If you get it through your kids, you get it through your kids. Like, I can speak from experience. Like, my daughter, like, saved me. I mean, obviously Jesus saved me, but you know what I mean? Like, she Just the light that she brought into my world changed my life. And but I always, no matter how much amazing stuff we see happen with kids, my heart is always for that woman that, how do I say this? That I just know that God created for more, but who doesn't know that yet? You know, like I could change the generation of kids. We really can, and we've really seen it happen. But my heart still pulls at the mom, and more so because, like, you know what? Like, God created her for more than this. God created her without all of those wounds and the struggle and the strife. And my heart really is for every woman to live exactly how God created them to live. And without all of that extra stuff that we place on ourselves and the enemy places on ourselves and other people place on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I'll not be wanting to work with moms, no matter how successful we are with our kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you see, like, the stuff that impacts women and is holding them back from who they're supposed to be? Like, is there really a difference between the states and Honduras in this teeny little village?
No, I mean, at the root, it's all the same, right? It's all the same. It's the lies of the enemy that tell us, especially when that tell us, you know, things that, well, you're not good enough, or, you know, you are damaged, and it's the trauma that happens here. I feel like we have a little bit more trauma that happens here. There's definitely a spirit of oppression, you know, that oppression kind of mindset. It adds a whole extra layer that we have to work through. But, you know, it's all the same tactics, right? Like, it all goes down to the same thing of tell them that there's something wrong with them and let them believe that for the rest of their life. Ours happens to be sometimes a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say more graphic in the trauma that we see, but it's just a different level, I feel like, that we see in this village. And I'll just say, like, our village compared to other villages that other missionaries work in, our village is harder. It just is. And I feel like that's true around the world, right? Like, there's just pockets of places that are a little bit harder to live in. And they have one of them. But that doesn't mean that there's not hard things happening in the States either for people. So I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I danced around.
Yeah, well,
I don't mean to.
No, I just think, like, it's so interesting that, I don't know, I think culture kind of tells us that, like, the stuff we have, you know, the car we drive, the house we live in, the clothes we wear, like, all of that sets us apart from all of those other people. And it's like, no, at the heart of it, we're all the same. Like, we're all struggling with, are we good enough? And do they love me? And do I have anything to bring? And, you know, so it's easier. Like, in my mind, I think it's easier for people to think, like, I don't know. And maybe even, like, somebody had said to me yesterday, like, first world problem. And it's like, maybe sometimes we do that with our mental health. Like, we discount it as, oh, it's just a first world problem. Like, there's more important. And it's like, no, there's not anything more important. Like, that's the foundation of everything. It's the foundation of being human. Like, do I have value? Does somebody love me? What am I here for?
For sure. I think I agree. I think that's the foundation. I think sometimes it's a little harder to figure that out here because of, like, I have a mom, for example, that we work really close with. We have for a while, and she's honestly become like family to me. So I cry. And she's made great progress. But you know what? The thing that changed for her when we changed is when we started to just excuse me, employ her. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We started to just employ her to clean our building. That we believed in her enough and trusted her enough to clean our building. That's when we really started to see her mental health. She gave her, because they were a family that she was a mom that couldn't feed her kids. She just literally went hungry day after day after day. And I can't imagine what that feels like as a mom. I mean, I've had poor times in my life where, you know, things were tough and I don't know how we paid our bills. not like that, to see my kids not eat day after day after day. And I can't imagine what that does on someone's mental health. And, so we would step in and give her some emergency things, but we just could not get a whole health even doing that. And it was when we gave her a job that we saw that she was like me as more than someone who just needs a handout. And they trust me. That gives her value and that gives her worth. And that's when we saw her mental health shift.
We'll be right back.
Art Doodling with Jesus is a membership where I do a live workshop once a month where we explore an emotion or an idea through doodling, which is just a simple creative process. I encourage you to draw with permanent markers and paint with watercolor paint to create space to listen to your emotions, the thoughts that are in your head, and what the Lord wants to say to you. And it's not about creating art. It is not about being good at it. It's about practicing the pause to go, what am I really feeling? What do I really think? What do I really believe on this particular topic? And giving you tools that you can use for yourself and with your kids to continue to explore your emotions outside of the workshops. You can come back and do workshops again and again if you're in the membership, but you also can take the practice that I'm teaching you and do it on your own for what's going on in your life. If you're interested in joining me, there's a link in the description.
Yeah, so I'm not just somebody that is valuable because they're willing to help me, but I'm valuable because I have something to bring.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the one. Yeah. And what we see with her now is I sent her out. Like last week we were home with COVID and she couldn't come in. And I was like, hey, go spend your hours just serving in the community. Like go find someone that needs some help with something, go do it. And for someone that has always been the one that needs to receive, to be able to be the giver in situations, and we've seen that on other scales as well with her, you can just see like the joy come into her life when she gets to be the giver, when those tables have turned and she's not the one that always is the one needing something, but is the one that actually has something to offer. That's powerful for people. And I think that that's true for all of us. Right. Yeah. Like I just had a conversation with my adult daughter last week, I think it was. And I was like, people's lives change when they tap into the purpose, when they tap into what they've been created to actually do. That's when we see the joy come in. And that's when we see mental health shift. We see them open up to be able to receive some of this. You know this with healing too, like that's touched my heart, healed. But a lot of times here, we can't even get people to this point of being able to receive healing until we've put some purpose in their life, until they can have some joy, until they can figure out that I actually have worth and value. And now I can step into my healing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think people can get so much to a state like they're so inward focused and can't see beyond themselves that like what would be the purpose of putting the work into getting healed? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not bringing anything anyway. Right. Like what does it matter? So yeah, that totally makes sense that they need to have at least that belief that they're here for a reason.
Yeah. I think it brings hope.
And I love that, like that reason. And again, maybe like a first world mindset of like, oh, the reason has to be to have this big business or this big ministry. I'm going to do this, whatever. Like, as simple as having a purpose, I can go help somebody, mm-hmm. And how often do we hear, like, if you're depressed, like, look out, go see what you can do for somebody. Right. Well, why? Right. Because it's showing you like, yeah, I have something to bring. I'm not just this pathetic puddle that needs people. Right. Like, I have something to bring.
Right. It's that value thing again. Like I have a value to bring to the table.
Yeah. And I love that. And I believe every woman, like every human, every woman, you're created in the image of God. So you have something to bring, period. Like
in any situation, don't you feel, I feel like, and I'm just so passionate about this, that like, I don't care where you are in life. God created you from the very beginning with gifts and talents and a personality that's specific to the calling that he gave for you. And no matter where you are in life, those things don't go away. Do you know what I mean? Like those things do not go away. And so no matter what situation, no matter what season you're in, no matter what that is, those gifts are there for a purpose. And there is some kind of way that you can be using them in every situation. I always say, like, start where you're at. Just start where you're at with whatever you have. Like, what does God give you to show up with? And sometimes it's ability, right? Like sometimes it's just reaching out to people. Sometimes it's just the conversation or the, those kinds of gifts that we sometimes look over because we're looking at people like me. And I speak intentionally because people look at me and they'll be like, well, I could never be a missionary. And I'm like, well, guess what? Well, I thought that I could never be a missionary either. There's still days where I was like, yesterday I had one of them days where I'm like, I just don't think I am fit for this. Like
you made a mistake. God, I don't belong here.
Like, you certainly meant to call the woman behind me in line, and it wasn't me. And but it's not about having the title, and it's not about having a position, and it's not about something great. And I think that's where we get stuck, is that as women, is we think that if we're not doing something great and something huge and something with a huge title, that we don't have anything to offer. And that's not true. That's so not true. I mean, I just sent a woman out last week to hand wash her neighbor, and the value that she provided, not only to how she felt doing something for someone else, but how she felt to that woman who she came alongside of and said, hey, help you clean some clothes. We just saw two women like just light up last week over washing some clothes. It's honestly, I think we make it too hard. We do too hard.
Yeah, too hard and too like spiritualized. So like maybe I don't want to have a big business and make lots of money, but I need to be in full-time ministry, or I need, like there's just all these limitations we put on it. And I guess having perspective of like being that young mom who was like, no, I'm just like head down trying to keep these kids alive and do my best to grow them into healthy people and whatever. And now being, 15, 20 years down the line and being able to see like, no, my passion for them to know God personally, and my passion for them to have healthy emotional skills and to be responsible people that could think for themselves, and like all of that I was pouring into them was all preparation for what he has me doing now.
Absolutely.
So there's that like,
Absolutely.
On the one hand, we discount it and don't even want to do it, but like God's using it all. It's, like you said, that stuff is always there, and it's going to maybe show up different in a different season, in a different setting, but it never goes away.
No, it never. And I would just say, like, at the same time, like, what did you impart to your children during those years that they're going to go out and now affect the world? Like, I think we discount that as moms, and I really feel like sometimes we discount our role as moms. And I'm like, it's one of the most important things you can do, because when you're speaking into they're going out then to affect others. And I think we sometimes...
and I get to reap the benefits of that too. Like, my adult kids have seen like, you're having an impact there, and you're sought after in your industry, and people respect you, and people come back to us and are like, what did you do with your kids? Because I want what you have.
Yeah.
So yes, it's worth it as a mom. Like, it might be hard and overwhelming, but it's worth it.
For sure. It's hard and overwhelming.
Yeah. And it might feel like all you're doing is keeping them alive. But if your heart is truly to connect with them and raise them to be who God made them to be. Like, there's no higher purpose to me.
No. I don't know if you've ever seen, and I feel like I talk about this on every time on anybody's show, but there's this very powerful video that John Bevere put out. And it is like 3 different people standing before the Lord, like on Judgment Day, of being, what did you do with the souls that I called you to? And it would be like, well, I was this person and I was an accountant, and God was like, no, I called you missionary. And then the missionary was like, I was a missionary, so I did good and called you to be an accountant. And then the stay-at-home mom comes up and she's like, I didn't do anything. She's like, and she's just like bawling and sobbing, like, I didn't. And he's like, oh no, you did exactly what I asked you to do, which was to raise these children. And how many lives and how many souls did these children go out and save? And it was like more than anyone else. And I always just remember that, because I feel like that is such just a powerful statement of like, God's going to put you exactly where he purposes you. And if you just stay faithful in that minute, you have no idea the impact that you're going to be at. And sometimes that is just staying home to mother. That is just keeping your kids alive, right? Like that is, there's just so much impact in that. Yeah.
And I always clung to Susanna Wesley. Like, she's just a mom raising her kids, but a mom who loved the Lord. And like, because she lived her faith, I mean, 2 of her sons started revivals, right?
Yeah.
And like, Billy Graham had to have a mom. Like, I'm not sure of that story, but I'm pretty sure that his faith came through his mom, and like just other people like that, like, the big name, but what did their mom sow into in prayer and the culture of their home and all of that, so they could be who God called them to be?
Absolutely. And let's not discredit that. I think it's interesting because I was just praying for this session, like, Lord, what do you want me to tell these women? And he was like, release. He's like, there's no expectation in my kingdom. And I was like, I don't, and then I got on and I saw like the title and I'm like, I just don't know if that fits, Lord, but I guess we'll go with it. And I feel like that this is kind of what I feel like this is kind of what that is about. Like release the expectation that you have to be doing something amazing or great or something that's worthy to be called an impact of the kingdom, because that's not his expectation. His expectation is just that you're faithful with what he's given you right now.
Yeah. And he said, if you give somebody a drink of water, if you feed them, like he didn't say, if you go start a church or if you give your life to full-time ministry or if you treat people like people.
Right.
Like show my love to them. That's the kingdom impact.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that release too of like, release the expectation, release the pressure, and just release the dreams. Like what do you want to do with him? What do you want to do for the kingdom? And like, this is where, for me, like the heart healing and the mental health comes back in, is whatever that dream is, all those things that come up in the way of why you can't and why that's too hard and not me and all that, that's where the healing needs to happen. So can step into that purpose, release the pain, release the lies.
For sure.
So that you can step into that.
I always feel like the enemy knows our purpose more than we do, right? Because I can just look at my own life, and I was like strategic in where he hit me and how he hit me, and the lies and the healing that I needed to have in order to get here. It was so strategic, and those are the things that keep you from your dreams, right? Those are the things that sometimes keep you from even dreaming at all, right? And that's so true. That is so true. But once you start to lift that off, don't you find this? Like once you start to lift that off, then all of a sudden, like the dreams get bigger. And you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, the passion comes just like the fire of God just comes in, and you're like, look at that. And it's not, and I always like to think of it as this way, like it's not something new. It's not new that now that you're healed, you're on fire for this, or that you have a passion for this, or you have a dream for this. That's not new. That was put in you before. It's just that all of this other stuff weighed it down and covered it up, right? Like this is not new for you. Just go do it now. Like be free to go. Yeah. I love that.
The thought I was having while you were talking about like those lies and how he so strategically hits you, and talking about like getting to the moms so that we can get to the kids, is something I've been able to do a lot more with, because I have kids that are in their 20s and then I have a 5-year-old. So like I'm getting to do this twice. And so seeing like the things that I've learned in those 20 years of being able to start teaching her to recognize when the enemy is lying to her and recognize that stuff, so that those lies are less likely to get planted or are not going to be as strong, or so far she doesn't seem to have let any stick. So but like being able to see like if there's one that's like, yeah, I know that one's hard for you, so I can be watching for that, and I can, and so again, like if you know how to do this for yourself, if you know how to see where the enemy is lying to you, and you know how that came in and those kind of things, you can teach your kids. Like it's not complicated. The kingdom of God is simple.
It is simple. And our kids absorb it better than we do.
Because they don't have to unlearn stuff.
No. They just believe it, right? Like they just believe it. They just receive it. They just receive it, and they just believe it. And we should all have that childlike faith. It's just harder for us.
Yeah, we have so much to unlearn.
Yeah. I like getting to children. I love what you're doing with your daughter, because I just feel like that's the goal, right? Is so that we don't have kids that grow up to have these.
Yeah, and I remember, I can't remember now who the people were, but somebody was talking about like, I have to do all these things with my kids and like do all this work, and I see this other family that like they're not battling with this. And what the Lord had shared with them was that there was 5 generations of intentional healing and like kingdom mindset in this other family. So it's like, yeah, they don't have to deal with that stuff. Like it's the blessings that are being passed down through the generations instead of the dysfunctional cycles. So no, they're not dealing with that, so that vision of like, no, we can create these kingdom families that like living in the kingdom and living connected with God and making that impact is normal instead of a battle.
Right.
How incredible is that?
And it's amazing to have those examples, right? Like that we're all reaching towards. Yeah.
To know it's like, oh, here's another generation of struggle. Here's, of like, okay, like you're going to have struggles, but here's all the stuff I've accomplished. So you can walk in this, and then you can go do your own battles instead of coming back and redoing mine.
Exactly.
Which is, that's where that passion for healing comes in, of like, no, like get it healed and pass it on to them so they don't have to fight the same battles.
That's the generational change, right? Like we talk a lot in our ministry about generational change, and that's it, right? Like when this generation learns to do it differently, then they pass something down to the next one and the next one and the next one. Yeah. Which is so beautiful.
Yeah. So awesome. When you're working in the village, are you just kind of there and they can connect with you, or do you have ways that you're reaching out?
I feel like we do a lot of things, but what we really do is we just lean onto the Lord and say, Lord, what do you have for us today? Like put whatever. And I just got done meeting this morning with our intern, and we're like, set out kind of the loose schedule for the week. But at the same time, I really had to instill in her that like, this can change at any moment, because here's the deal. Every day we wake up and we say, Lord, what do you want us to do? and touch, and what does that look like? And then people show up at my gate, and we don't turn them away because we have structure and schedule. We say, Lord, what is it that you want for these people to have today? And so there's just a lot of beautiful opportunities that come up from that. And again, that was a lot about me learning to release the expectation that I had to be doing this and I had to be doing that. And I had to have something planned every day too. And not only for me, but people in the community. I took a lot of heat from people in the community who really, my place was to run programs. And if I wasn't running programs, I wasn't doing anything. We're slowly introducing them to the understanding that the Lord provides. I just have to show up with an open heart, right? And a willing spirit to do what he says. And so
I love it because like here you are, a full-time missionary, and what you do is exactly what every mom can do, whether she's working or stay at home or whatever. Holy Spirit, what do you want me to do today? Put the people in front of me that you want to impact. Let me know how you want me to work with them. Like whether that's the children that are in your house or the neighbor kids that come over or the coworkers or the clients or whatever, like that's how you make an impact, is by walking in step with the Spirit. To be able to just go, okay, what are you doing? Where do you want me? And that rest and flow and freedom that comes with that, because I'm not producing anything. I'm just doing what he says, and he's going to work it all together into what he's making.
For sure. And that's what we found, right? Is that we were running beautiful programs and having tons of kids, and we were making such a great impact. And at the same time, it became something that felt like it was just an obligation. You know, we just went through the motions. And kids were getting great. And I wouldn't say that our programs weren't touching people. We were having an impact and things were happening, but we were going through it was no longer about God, really. It was about me. It was about us showing up and running programs.
Meeting people's expectations.
And that's when I was like, we're
not which hit me as a young mom too, that like I was living in that season of probably not quite as fully, but just a place of trying to be in that place of, God, what do you have for me today? You know, and where are we supposed to show up and what are we doing? And like, there was a lot of pressure even from church because I wasn't doing the programs and I wasn't in the things. And it's like, that's not what he's called me to in this season. So I'm sorry you don't have enough people for your nursery or your children's church, or like he's called me to my kids. And that's what this looks like in this season. I don't have the time or energy for your program, you know? And so like, that just reminded me of that when you're saying like, yeah, the community wasn't happy that I'm not providing these programs and they can count on these things. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to serve, but only in the way that God tells me to.
I have had to learn to set that boundary with them and literally step out of their church and because it was interfering with me doing what my assignment. Like all of this other drama and expectation and dynamic things and some of that is cultural, right? Because they have a different understanding than I do, and so we had an extra layer of that we had to go through, but I had to honestly and I just did this in the last few months when I was like, hey, I'm stepping back, I'm stepping away, I'm putting boundaries up. I don't know that this will be forever. This drama and expectation and hard conversations about things that aren't really going anywhere was distracting me from actually doing the things that I was called to do, right? Like it was getting in the way of what I was literally called to do. And learn to set that boundary. And that was super hard for me. That was super hard to go to the church and say, I'm not coming back. I will come back on the days that Lord asked me to come. Otherwise I'm not. I will continue to sow and I continue to pray for you and I continue to believe in you and your purpose in this community. But we can't partner together anymore. And I can't be here with these conversations anymore because it actually is not in your best interest for me to do that. So that has been a really hard season here with that dynamic happening. But personal growth and the growth in our ministry, because I took that step, has been exponential. When you stay faithful to really not allowing the distractions for what you're really called to, that's an obedience and a faithfulness to God that he honors.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's great to talk to you.
Sure. Can I just share one more thing? I promise I will be brief, but we were talking about like just flowing with the Lord and what I do every day. I just felt really urgently also to say, I have 2 days a week that I take as rest days, and I do not answer my gate. And I do not, because I live in the village in which I minister, right? And so people are always here. And it's always no matter what I do, it's not Brenda, it's my ministry I'm representing, right? And so there's a lot of extra pressure that way. Every week I take 2 days in which I do not answer my gate, and I do not normally, unless there's a really urgent prayer need, I do not interact with people intentionally because I need to refuel. And so I just felt like the Lord called me to make sure that I say that to moms, especially, that you are enough to take the time to refuel, and it actually makes it all work better, right? Like I couldn't continue to do what I do if I didn't take that rest time, if I didn't refuel and recharge and do that. And I think that is something that as moms, we often put on the back burner. But that's the thing that actually allows us to accomplish the things that the Lord's calling us to do.
So aside from taking the break and not answering the calls, so you're not doing the work, what do you do to actually refuel?
I listen to a ton of teachings. I'm forever on a ton of teachings. I just do every day. I try to do a little of that, and I do the prayer in the community, and then I do worship and prayer or read that. I do a little every day, but those days I do way more of all of that, and intentionally do that, because sometimes I'll be like, I'm too tired to do that, and I'm like, no, this is what you need to do. But I do rest, also like physical rest. If I want in the afternoon, girl, I'm taking a nap in the afternoon. Like that is just what I do. And I also try to limit my social media during those times, because I just know for me that social media is one of those things that can get my head spinning away from my heart. And so those are the things that work for me to refuel. But I think I try to get out in nature. So there's a few restaurants that are up in the mountains where things are like that. So I will go to and things like that. But usually I honestly, I ask myself, and I'm like, what do you need? Sometimes it's a meal. Sometimes it's like just a good meal, honestly. Sometimes it's a nap. Sometimes I just really have to ask myself, like, what is it that you're needing? How do you need to refuel? And I just feel like our spirit and our body knows the answer to that usually, Sometimes I have to call and talk to my mom. Sometimes I have to call and talk to my daughter. Like sometimes I need to connect back to home. Sometimes I need to do some personal deliverance. Sometimes, it all just depends on what's happening and going on. But
yeah, I love that permission to just ask yourself. Or if you feel like you ask yourself and you don't get an answer, ask the Lord. What do I need?
For sure. He knows. And so he has and sometimes I'll say, Lord, do you have a treat for me today? Like a treat, like, is there something special that you want for me to have or to do today? You know what I mean? And then I'll kind of hear from him. Yeah, take yourself to that restaurant, like that, your favorite, whatever. And, and I'll be like, yeah, I do deserve that. I'm like, I do deserve that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So beautiful. So good to connect with your heart for rise up into what God has called them to. And his women are valuable, whether they live here or in another country. They're still his daughters. He still loves them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you I have loved talking. I feel like we share that same. I always love talking to people that I'm like, she speaks my language.
Yeah, it's always refreshing. Always good of like, yes, I'm not in this alone. Somebody else understands this and they're working on this too.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much and bless you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up podcast. I'm blessed to have you here. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join us in the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up Facebook community. When you're ready for more support, I have the Heart Doodling with Jesus monthly membership, periodic group coaching, and one-on-one personalized coaching as well. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.